In the arms of the angel.
Is no result.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
You
Everybody hurts sometimes.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
All right, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. We got the sad boy music playing this week, and we got two sad boys on the mic tonight. That would be Muskies on Tap members, Brian and Max. They had a rough go at the PMCC. I'll just say it straight up. It's hard to hear, but we're still gonna talk about it. I know they had some high hopes, and I think they did too, but ended up being a tough weekend, and we'll talk about that tonight. We also have our second guest ever that's coming on tonight, and that's Clayton Spiess. He got one fish in the PMCC, and I think we're gonna talk a little bit on that, and maybe just kind of talk about himself and what he's been doing up here and his guide business and all that good stuff. So we'll get into that later in the podcast. But for right now, I'll quick introduce the other Muskies on Tap members, and the first one is Max Manti. How you doing tonight, Max?
Hey Gus, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, man?
Long car ride home back to Minneapolis today. Tell you what, buddy. Long car ride home. Had some traffic coming into town. A lot to think about. A lot on my mind. Just a tough weekend.
So you better call up Sad Boy, because I think you just joined the Sad Boy Club. Sad Boy Muskie Club.
Sending in my initiation papers. I think I'll be given the green stamp of approval pretty quickly here after we talk about how our last 2.5 days have gone. But why don't you kick it over to my partner over there?
Yeah. Brian, how are you doing tonight? How you feeling?
I'm beat up, and my body gets a lot more sore when we're just endlessly casting and not catching fish. I don't know if there's any signs behind that, but yeah, I'm pretty beat and mentally fried, and just totally confused as to what we did wrong. Maybe we were just unlucky, but hopefully when we talk to Clayton later, he can let us in on some of the secrets and tell us what the hell we were doing wrong.
Musky fishing is hard, man.
It's hard.
Just hard.
It's hard. Sometimes it's not fun.
Humbling, that's for sure.
Yeah, we had some bold predictions last week, and safe to say we didn't even scratch the surface on those, so we'll get them next time.
Yeah, I just would to clarify when I told you to take out your mortgage and
that was not betting advice.
And place it on us to catch over 1.5 fish. I'm not bound by that legally.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put a little disclaimer in there. Because man, you would have lost.
Before you guys keep rambling on too much about this, you guys by chance tonight have anything on tap that you're drinking to kind of drown out the sorrows and look forward to another weekend?
Tell you what, if I wasn't getting up super early for work, I'd probably find a bottle of Everclear and help my body heal itself. How about you, Max? You joining me?
Oh my.
Yeah. Well, not to be like super depressing, but I just moved into a new apartment. So like I came back to kind of an empty shoebox. No booze or beer in the fridge right now. And the great state of Minnesota's liquor laws on Sunday are horrendous. So they close up shop prior to when I got back. So
You
I'm
you
just
can buy you can buy
drinking a
two
cold
two
glass of
percent
water.
beer, I think.
Yeah, not after 6. Whatever. So yeah, I got a glass of ice water. Next week I'll come more prepared.
Awesome. Well, for myself tonight, I am rocking a Busch Light Peach. First time drinking it, and I gotta say, I'm actually pretty impressed. I know some people don't really like the fruitiness. I do like, fruity flavors and drinks sometimes, and I gotta say, this is quite refreshing. And I'm glad I accidentally bought a 30 pack without ever having one before. So
Accidentally.
Yeah, quite refreshing, huh? Sounds nice. Seem like you're in a good mood.
yeah.
Talking about fruity beers. It's like somebody caught some fish tonight or something.
Yeah, maybe a couple. I don't know if we need to talk about that too much, but I
Kick
think the
rocks.
Couple
spotlight is
3-4.
couple 3-4.
Yeah.
Well, we'll kick over the spotlight back to you guys. What I would like to know is that it sounded like you were very confident in your first spot. What was going through your head after you finished that first spot? Maybe give the listeners a little insight on what happened and then what your next thoughts were after that.
We stuck to the game plan that we pretty much developed, earlier in the week. Kind of our A1 spot in the chain, and we had heard from you, Gus, and from pre-fishing Friday that the bug hatch was in full effect and that a lot of the fish are going to be kind of displaced from their typical summer spots and kind of out in the basins. But we went to our number one confidence spot in the chain, like any time of the year. And we were probably on it for an hour there. I think it took us 30 minutes to get to this spot. So we probably fished at 7:30 to 8:30. Fished it for probably a half hour, didn't see anything, no signs of life, just stuck to the spot. And then I think Max moved the first little fish, probably, I don't know, around 32 incher. What were you using at the time, Max?
Just some double eights.
Double eights. And then I think probably 30 yards down this weed line, I moved one. God, I can't remember now. I think it was a crane bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved it on the crane bait. Came in super slow and lethargic and probably 8 feet behind the bait, and kind of right as I got into the shadow of the boat, just turned and darted off. So moved 2 fish at our first spot, which, we love to have caught one right away, first thing in the morning. But I mean, it didn't hinder my confidence at all. And, would have been a lot less confident if we fished our A1 spot and didn't see anything to start the day. So I was still feeling good at the time. I don't know, Max, would you say the same?
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling good. I think after spot 1, I mean, we, like you said, moving 2 fish. I guess I'd kind of want to go back a little bit and start, during our pre-fishing day. We ended up doing some trolling in Gus's boat, which, was equipped with the live scope and a little bit bigger monitor, stuff like that. So it was a little bit kind of easier to see what was going on out there. And that was kind of our strategy, was trying to dial in a pattern. Yeah. And as you know, we had the 16-foot Ranger with just a lot less tech and, smaller, whatever. So when we were pre-fishing on Friday, I think we felt pretty confident that most of the fish were going to be pushed off of the weeds. But our thought process, I think, mostly was, okay, there's going to be fish caught in weeds in this tournament. There's going to be probably more fish caught in open water, but with the tech we had and kind of our boat that we were running, we just felt confident that if we hit our, really well-known kind of weed line areas, and either had one person casting up into the weeds and then one person casting off the break, eventually something was going to kind of pop. And so that was the game plan. We didn't really do well pre-fishing during the week. So I know you were out there a few nights, Gus, and I came up on Thursday. So, I guess the confidence level is always feels fairly high in the chain just because we've been fishing it for so long, but didn't really feel like we necessarily dialed anything in pre-fishing. We just felt like, okay, this is going to be the bite. Everyone seemed to be a little bit uniform on it, talking with people at the rules meeting and stuff like that. I would not have guessed after moving those first 2 fish on Saturday morning, spoiler alert, to not see another muskie for the next 14 hours.
Yeah,
That's never fun. Never
it
fun. That's
just,
never fun in any situation, let alone a tournament, really.
yeah.
you can go ahead, Brian.
I don't have a whole lot to say. I was gonna kind of just break down the chain of events, but yeah, a little spoiler alert there. Those first 2 fish were the last for us. Other than a couple measly pike and a trophy walleye, we didn't see anything we were after.
Yeah. We don't really need to belabor it too much. Well, yeah, we can. The silver lining of the weekend, the highlight of it was Brian's like 26-inch walleye he caught while hand trolling, which is an event in itself. Like anytime you go try to eat from we were literally passing a Gardetto's bag back and forth, trying to take turns on who was going to eat it, because we're like, the second we stuff our hand in this Gardetto's bag, the rod's going to come flying out of our lap that we were trying to wedge in between our legs. So
yeah, I didn't think going in. I was expecting to troll, and I didn't think hand trolling was going to be that big of an issue. But I learned this weekend it's not ideal. It's not ideal by any means.
Yeah, people that musky fish can relate to this. Like when things feel off or start to go south, like it's hard to kind of regain that confidence. Especially like when stuff that was there the day before just completely flips the next day. And that, I think, is essentially what happened to us. I mean, we had weed beds and shorelines kind of mapped out that were adjacent to really big bug hatches. And we were going to stick with that strategy of, one person casting off the break, the other person casting in the weeds, and kind of just combing through those areas. We got out there Saturday morning. The original spot that we started on, the one that we felt really good about, that was loaded with bait right off of the break Friday morning. We got there on Saturday, and when I was driving up to the spot, I was like, ooh, no bugs, no bait. And as we were moving around the kind of the edge, all of it was vacated. And same thing happened for spot 2, 3, 4. And we really didn't find bait and bugs till like late morning, which is when we started doing that hand trolling stuff.
Now, maybe with obviously not giving away spots or lakes or anything, and I'm definitely curious about this too, because I was on the chain with you pre-fishing, but then obviously I was not there during the tournament. Do you think, or maybe just like in your head, have like a little reason on why those bugs weren't there? Do you think it was because that hatch in that area was done, or was there a wind switch? Did something get pushed in the different direction, or what went on there, you think?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I guess the one thing that really frustrated me was there's one spot in particular that we've now done this a few years in a row where like it is always loaded with during this bug hatch. It's always loaded with bugs, always loaded with bait. So when we weren't finding it, we switched lakes to go to this area specifically to hand troll because it's where we had success, our minimal success pre-fishing. And we got there and started hand trolling, and it was just an empty room. There was nothing there. And that's when I was like, okay, we got to figure something else out and pivot.
Yeah, it was weird because, I'm like we were saying, I know where all this bait is right off of these weed lines and kind of out into the basin more. And it definitely wasn't a consistent wind on Saturday. So there was like a few times where the wind picked up momentarily, like 10-minute spurts, and then it would just totally kill, and it'd be bluebird and glass across the whole lake. So I don't know. I don't think that's enough wind to just totally blow these bugs like scattered all around. I feel like it has to be more consistent than that. So I don't know what it did overnight. But yeah, especially Sunday too. Sunday makes more sense that they're more scattered in new spots because it was just consistent wind.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, guys. It's tough when you have something for the most part dialed before a tournament, and then you go into the tournament and just shit hits the fan and nothing looks right, and your spots are just vacated. It's not good. It's not a good feeling. Like it definitely stinks. And And I mean, something that we've definitely noticed with this spring, and I don't know if it's just something that it was going over our heads, but in previous years, but those bugfish, they're mobile. I mean, and as you can see that those spots are just like,
Yeah.
it's like re-upping on fish. It's like a reload spot, as we like to call it. It's a fish reloader. It's a really good spot, but it's just like, that fish, that spot's going to keep reloading fish. And that's what these fish, I think, are doing in those bugs. And it's just tough when you got to chase them around. And I think that's almost harder when you pre-fish it. And I remember talking to somebody, and I can't remember who I talked to, but he's like, why are these people pre-fishing so much on these bugs? They're just going to change every day. And I remember listening to that. I'm like, wow, yeah, I mean, it makes sense because the weather, we looked at the weekend weather and like the whole week's the same. You had a pattern going there, and the guy's like, the weather's going to change. Like everything's just going to be like completely different. So like there's just a bunch of people that probably had nothing going in the tournament, and they just go in their spots and all of a sudden they're loaded, Like there's
Yeah.
the luck aspect.
Heard that.
Yeah, so I think for us, what kind of started to dip our spirits a bit and just confuse us was it was a blessing and a curse that we moved 2 fish in the weeds, first spot on Saturday. And we're like, okay, so there's still some fish in the weeds amongst this bug hatch. I think we tried a couple more weed spots, and then I think pretty quickly we went, a full 2 cast lengths off a break, to try and like cast the bug hatch. Didn't see anything or raise any fish. Spoiler, didn't raise any fish the rest of the tournament. But it was, I mean, it was hard for us to just like hand troll endlessly the whole day. Like, I mean, you get so tuned out, you get tired of holding the rod, you want to just stretch your body, you can't do anything. But, then in the back of our head, we're like, all right, well, there's going to be some fish shallow. We just got to find, a couple active males that are full of piss and vinegar at 31 inches and try our luck that way. And yeah, I mean, that didn't pay off either. So we literally flip-flop strategies every spot. It felt like we'd be in the weeds. Next spot, we'd go 2 casts off and fish kind of the basin. Then we'd get tired of ripping rubber and we go back to hand trolling for 20 minutes. And I mean, it was just back and forth the whole time. And I didn't hate this strategy. It felt like these were all great spots, and we just had to eventually come across a fish I wanted to eat, and just never happened. So
yeah. We had like a 30-minute stretch on Saturday that was like just like a total kick in the ass where we're working with limited supplies, and I dumped our only split ring pliers into the water. So I was not able to change baits there for a bit.
A little learning moment for everybody listening. Do not try and change your bait over the edge of the boat.
Yeah, I got like stabbed by a hook, and I kind of flinched, and then splitting pliers dumped. And then like a few minutes after that, Brian catches like a 26-inch walleye. So obviously, we're thinking we finally just pegged a fish, and he reels up this monster chain walleye that
most uneventful trophy catch, I guess you call it.
Walleye.
We went right over a steep break, and Max had said 5 seconds before I caught it, you might hit bottom. And then I'm, hand trolling it, and all of a sudden I just feel like a heavy weight in the end of my line. I'm like, yeah. And I start reeling it up, and I'm like, wait, that's a fish skimming across the water. So, yeah. And I mean, it was cool to see, but
I think 5 minutes after that, you got a knot in your line. For anyone listening to this right now, if you want to hear some fish stories, just hit that fast forward button until we get to the Clayton interview. But we'll kind of keep going. Yeah, you can call it if you want, guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll just say Saturday, what made it even more confusing, then we made a lake change. Like you had said, Max, we trolled around the same spot where we had a little bit of success pre-fishing. And then shortly thereafter, this big front moved in. The wind went from 0 to 20 for 10 minutes.
Getting tossed out there.
Yeah, and it felt like okay, 80% of the guys in this tournament are catching a fish right now. This is a bite window. It has to be. So just one of the many times we got absolutely fooled and nothing happened during what seemed to be a perfect bite window. And then that wind totally cuts out. We're back to blue skies and sun, and now we're like, all right, the hell do we do?
And with 85, 90 degrees and sun with no wind on a Saturday on the chain.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't want to sound like I feel like I'm typically an optimistic person, but Gus, like you saw me after Saturday, I was just like letting it all out when we met up Saturday night. I mean, the chain was bumping, like bumping. We had the double decker party boats going, blasting music, tossing beers back and forth between pontoon boats, front ends of pontoon boats, submarining going into the channels because there's people hanging on the front. Like it is just not your like typical musky fishing atmosphere. You're trying to grind out like a 33-inch fish and like you're freaking watching people like dance their faces off to like a dumb Morgan Wallen song or something.
Yeah.
And it's just, it was funny. But it was a rough day, man. It just was like we just never really felt like we were on it. And that clock starts moving pretty fast in tournaments when, like it moves fast in a way. And obviously it's slow when you're not catching fish, but like when you're trying to figure it out and you're just moving spot after spot after spot and you keep thinking something's going to happen, 4:00 snuck up on us like that. And I don't know, Brian, like I would say, there were fish caught, obviously some really nice fish caught on Saturday. So we knew it was doable. And we saw the weather coming into Sunday. So I think we felt okay heading into today, but I think today was the true backbreaker.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was so just mentally and physically beat up after Saturday that like I just wrote us off on contending in the tournament going into Sunday and was more so just like I just got to see like a fish. Like
it's like
just,
a pride thing at that point. We're on home water. Like it just
I just got to like catch a fish. And Sunday seemed like, absolutely perfect musky conditions in the middle of summer. A decent temperature change, rain and wind and thick clouds moving in. We dodged all the lightning, so we got to fish a full day today on Sunday. And I mean, we kind of, I don't know. It's tough to say like our decisions were wrong. I mean, people were catching them in the weeds, and that's where we started today. And sprinkle it turned into torrential downpour, and it felt so right. I threw flaptail for probably an hour straight, just like it was such juicy conditions. And once again, no life.
There's nothing worse than being like really sad and then a torrential downpour happens and then you're just wet and just sitting on the boat.
We were like wet cats out there,
it's like, God, something good's gotta happen soon. Like 30 minutes left. I hooked a pike in the back, so it felt really big.
Yeah.
That was exciting for about 3 seconds. I mean, it was tough. It just was.
It was one of those where like, come like 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. today, we had 2 hours left and you're just sitting there weighing like, all right, I kind of want to get the hell out of here, but I really want to catch a fish. Is it worth it? So didn't get lucky. I'll just say that, hang our hat on that.
Yeah, not all tournaments are bangers. I mean, I think, small victories from the weekend. We're still friends. Definitely want to do this again and get some revenge, whether it's, this tournament next year if it happens or a different one. Other than that, about it.
Yeah.
I mean, did you guys enjoy your time out there?
Yeah, it's always fun being out there, but tell you what, it pisses you off pretty quick.
Yeah, I had a good time. I think it was just frustrated. I was more so frustrated on Saturday because, like, I think, we were joking around and it ended up being a shit show. But, like, I think there were some expectations of at least putting on a good showing, and getting a fish or two, would have been obviously great. But it happens, man. I mean, it's musky fishing, I mean, Gus, we've struggled historically. I mean, we've done 4 tournaments on the chain and we've only done okay or good and, really one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, we've struggled sometimes when like there's, money on the line or it's a tournament aspect on the chain. Sometimes it's that home water thing. I don't know. It screws with people for tournament fishing because it's like they go, they just go to the spots that they know, and that's it. Whereas the people coming in from all over the place, they're kind of coming in with that open mind and looking for little things that we might just be completely missing.
I think if I could do anything differently this last weekend is I think what Brian and I ended up falling back on after we kind of fell out of a pattern was we just went on like straight history. We just kept being like, well, we caught a fish here. Let's go here. We caught a fish there. Let's go there. And then we'd get, frustrated when we didn't see anything or whatever.
Yeah, I'm most frustrated after fishing today, just because like Saturday was mostly bluebird, just jam-packed action, jet skiers, everything. Like it didn't feel like a musky fishing day at all. So
there was 55 boats in the area at one point when we were trying to fish.
It was ridiculous.
You're freaking.
At least we had good excuses Saturday to blame our poor fishing on, but Sunday we really didn't have an excuse, and honestly the muskies don't have an excuse to not beating our baits because it was just perfect conditions. It just seemed like everything was aligning, and it just made me like even more confused if that was possible after Saturday. So I don't know. I don't have any regrets with the way we fished. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Gus, you got any more questions for the sad boys?
Well, I know when I was, out this weekend, it was a really bummer for me to hear from you guys that you were struggling. But I mean, it's just, it happens, man. It's musky fishing, and I think we got some really good fishing ahead with the three of us, and maybe some more people coming up. I know you guys are going to be up for the 4th of July, so there's going to be some more. All three of us, Muskies on Tap, fishing going on, and we're going to be talking about that in the upcoming podcast. So definitely hoping we can have some really good fish stories in there and good catches and kind of, what's been working.
I'm excited to get back after it. I think weekends like this actually make me more excited to musky fish again, which just seems
because like, we're at rock bottom. Can't get any worse.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems kind of psychotic. Like, just keep doing it. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to fish. It's not all doom and gloom over here. Look, like, yeah, are we bummed we sucked this weekend? Sure, absolutely. But it was a fun time. Like it was fun chopping it up. Honestly, Gus, like it was really interesting not fishing in a tournament with you, like on our, normal boat with all the normal tech. Like that was kind of a fun challenge in itself. I mean, obviously, would have been cool to overcome those challenges, but yeah, it was, it was still fun. And Brian and I think we'll be back. I think we'll get in another tournament together.
Just give me like three days to heal a little bit, and then I'll be back.
Yeah, it's a little different tune tonight than it was last week, but that's all right. We'll get the confidence back up over the next
hopefully nobody remembers last week's pod, but
if you listen, no, you didn't. You didn't hear it.
There was nothing said. I think that kind of wraps up the little recap there, and I think we should dial up our conversation we're about to have with Clayton Spiess. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it.
A guy that catches fish inbound.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm pumped. All right, now we'll bring on our official second ever guest of Muskies on Tap, Clayton Spiess. Spice. Hopefully I pronounced that.
Spiess, you got it right the first time.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We brought you on because my partner and I, Brian, obviously struggled quite immensely in the PMCC this weekend, as you just heard. But you managed to fish. So we're curious to hear, how'd you prepare? What was your thoughts going into the tournament? How'd you end up getting that fish?
Well, yeah. So thanks for having me on. First of all, pretty excited about that, and been listening to you guys since day one. So I like the content. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
But
thank you.
So I can ramble on all night about this, I guess. But I pre-fished the crap out of the chain. Both of them actually a little bit. A lot of trolling this time of year. with the bug hatch or the mayflies, I guess, as you will, starting to hatch out on the lakes. Typically for me, in the last 3 years, I've been starting to troll and just kind of learning a little more and more every year, and found out that typically this time of year we do really well trolling. And that was my main focus. And we definitely got dialed in all week. I stayed on top of them. I was out every day on one of the 2 chains and pretty much followed the progression. And yeah, just went with it.
So go ahead, Brian. You can go ahead.
Yeah, so we obviously just stuck on the Eagle River chain. Did you notice distinct differences between Three Lakes and Eagle River chain when you were pre-fishing?
Very much. Yeah.
Was it like less bug hatch over there? It's kind of what we heard, but
Yeah, I think it was less, but then I found out from some Three Lakes guys that they found a mega bug hatch on 2 lakes out there about 2 weeks ago. And it was so big though that it filled the entire lake and they couldn't really pattern the fish at all. So that actually didn't help them. But during the tournament and the week upcoming, I felt that the bug hatch was setting up way better on Eagle River than Three Lakes.
Did you notice at all that the hatches were kind of popping up in different places every single day? Because one thing that we, saw an area that we pre-fished on Friday that was completely loaded with bugs was vacant on Saturday. And that kind of threw us for a loop. And then honestly, just driving from spot to spot today, we can kind of get into like the difference, the different weather that kind of came in and everything, and if that changed your mindset. But just driving from spots today, all of a sudden bugs were popping up in places that there were no bugs Friday and yesterday as well. So I don't know if you guys saw that too, but that was something that just put our minds into a complete pretzel.
Yeah, most definitely. I thought that this was actually one of the harder hatches for me to follow because I don't know, during the week it was super calm. You guys know, sunny and hot. And I felt like without the wind, the bug hatches were very distinct, very small areas that were popping a ton of bugs. And they would all stay in the same spot versus typically we have some wind at some point that kind of spreads it out across maybe a basin and it's easier to troll. I found that it did change every single day, and particularly from Friday until Saturday was the biggest change. And that was probably what hurt us the most.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we tried our hand at trolling a little bit on Saturday with the limited stuff we had. I mean, we didn't have rod holders, so like we couldn't even eat lunch or have a snack or take a drink of water without being afraid that we were going to get the rod ripped out of our hands. I don't know if you heard, but Brian ended up catching like a 26-inch walleye.
Yes.
So
that happens more than you would think, but that's awesome. I mean, that's a good fish out there.
Right. That was our, I guess, one shiny moment for the weekend.
Didn't really get to enjoy it being that it was during a tournament because we were like, oh my God, there's actually a fish on this. And then, it's just a giant walleye, chuck it back.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Did you notice today being Sunday, something that was really unique that I had never seen before? And you've been fishing the Eagle River area for a little bit longer than I have, I know. But this was something I had never seen before, where we were coming up on to certain spots that we were going to fish and looking at our 2D, and granted it's a small screen, a little bit older model, but it almost looked like the weed edge was extended. There was so many bugs up tight to the brakes. And normally they're kind of hanging out over big mud flats where you can kind of roam around. And that still was going on today, but it was almost like I was tripped out where I was seeing like they were so thick on the brakes that it almost looked like an extended weed edge, if you will. So
yeah, that happened. That actually happened for us on Saturday too.
Okay.
And like it would get to be so thick that my graph was reading 4 feet deep when it was 12 feet and we were on the break. And that definitely changed where the fish were because we were catching fish in the basin all week pre-fishing and last weekend. And we barely saw a fish out in the basin. I mean, I know they were out there because I watched people sharpshoot them and catch them today. So there were still some out there, but we saw over 20 fish this weekend. I would say 98% of them were on the break.
Yeah. And that,
yeah, it's like, I don't know what the hell we did wrong. I mean, We fish
But
in
we
the
trolled
weeds,
that
on
chain.
the break, way off the break. I mean,
Yeah. So you said you were seeing a lot of fish. Did you, on top of the fish you caught, did you guys have any other rips or any chances that could have kind of bumped you up?
Yeah. Typically, well, for me personally, I typically don't lose fish that often. Maybe our hookup rate's probably about 90% with, I found mono seems to work better with small baits and out there with a medium rod personally.
Sure. Yeah.
But very high success rate for hits and hookups. And we dumped 2 this weekend. One of
Oh,
them was probably a pretty good one.
damn.
We didn't get to see it, but the first one we dumped maybe wouldn't have registered. And basically, Josh, my partner, was able to grab the rod out of the holder and bend in the rod, lift up, and the fish just skied right out of the water, came from whatever depth it was at, launched in through the bait. And I was like, what the heck? Of course that would happen during a tournament.
yeah.
Yeah. God.
Did,
that's
did you guys only troll them the whole time, or did you cast a little bit?
We casted today from 10:30 until about 11:30.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
we
we were-
ran out of bait and ran out of fish, and we heard how many fish were getting caught, and I was like, what do you feel like doing, Josh? He's like, oh, let's go cast for a bit. And then I raised like a 38 on my second cast.
So yeah, we saw you this morning. I think you started kind of out in the basin a little bit more.
Yep.
I guess in our head we thought like with the front pushing in, like these fish were gonna move up at least to the break line of the weeds or in the weeds. I mean, what was your thought process going into it? They weren't gonna move much.
I thought that the fish that were on the breaks would move up into the weeds, or the fish that were in the weeds would go super shallow. And I thought that the basin fish or the fish feeding on the bait would stay out there. Yeah. I didn't think that they would move yet.
Okay.
And I don't think they really did move this morning. They were all out there.
Do you think that the water clarity, I mean, it was really clear relative for Eagle River chain. Do you think the water clarity played into that at all, with just fish not really feeling comfortable shallow right now? Because it was weird seeing, like, actually visually seeing weed beds on the chain. I'm not as used to that really, because I mean, by the time we really get into fishing the chain, normally it's either later in the summer or during this bug hatch when we're just trolling. But when we were kind of picking through some weed pockets, like, we were just visually seeing, huge beds kind of casting around them, which is not a typical thing we've done on the chain.
I can't say that I've ever seen it this clear by this late in June.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought that maybe that would hinder, but maybe hinder more so the casters up in the weeds. But I honestly wasn't really thinking, if anything, that might help us draw fish from further away. And it actually could have, because the 2 rips that we lost, I never saw those fish prior, but I did call the shots on fish that we marked, and then did catch the one yesterday and a short today. But I thought maybe we were pulling fish out of the weeds. We were getting so close to the breaks, and that they were screaming out of the weeds, and because as soon as we'd turn out to the basin, we'd get rocked.
Interesting. Yeah, that was one thing that came up in my head when we were fishing today, and like, it just kind of goes back to my prior question of seeing so many of those bugs on the, like, tight to the break lines. It was like, man, if we could troll and actually be accurate and consistent, but we just weren't dialed in enough. Like, our tech was just not quite there. It's funny, like, we had our old graph and our old waypoints, and there were waypoints that we had that I know that we had plotted them for, like, weed edges and stuff like that, just completely void of any weeds. It just was, it was so bizarre. I don't know, not to sound like I'm making excuses. Totally, I'm making excuses, but it was just, that was crazy. Like, the whole chain it's set up differently. I mean, I haven't been fishing it as much as I probably should going into this tournament. I mean, we just felt lost. So that, I'm glad that we got to talk to you. Kind of, I guess I don't know, validified some of our thoughts. We just didn't really put them into practice as good as we probably should have.
Yeah. So I have one more question in terms of your strategy with trolling, like, especially with the bug hatch. Are you picking your baits kind of based on, like, the forage that'll be feeding on these bugs, or do you kind of have, like, your favorite trolling baits that you use, across the county? Or I guess if you want to tell what baits they were or what size.
So, well, this year was different than typical. I would say normally we catch more fish on lunging lures. And there are a couple colors. I mean, I know what Gus's favorite color is out there, and that happens to be very similar to ours. I mean, we always have a walleye or brown and yellow or something running, and then we switch it up and see what we can do. But up until yesterday afternoon, the big fish that we dumped, everything had been on baby DRs and jointed baby DRs. Color did not matter. But as long as I was running those, we were getting fish to bite. Which took me a while to figure that out, but once we did, then it seemed like game on.
Yeah, there's nothing better than the feeling when you feel like you actually dial in a pattern, especially before the tournament starts. All right, so you got a storied career here in these tournaments. I know just off the top of my head, I think we first found out your name from one of your YouTube videos you posted where you won, what was it, the National Musky Championship that they host here in Vilas and Oneida County. Was that back? How many years ago was that?
The Alliance tournament? Is that the 3-day or whatever in August?
Yeah, I know you got a few first places, so I think it was that one. All right, so I guess my question is, how do you kind of go about tournament fishing that's different from just like a normal everyday out on the water? Like, say, obviously you have like 8 hours during a tournament day and you were fishing with a few buddies and you had 8 hours on a Saturday or something, you're going out. Like, what are you doing differently? Do you approach it any differently? If you want to just talk about that, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, yeah, so I guess depending on the tournament is going to depend on how I approach it and the friends that, I'm fishing with.
Sure.
Typically, if I go fun fishing now, we're trying to target big fish or go to waters that, obviously everyone wants a big one, but for fun fishing, I like to go and get myself on a body of water that's known or we've seen or caught, giants on at some point in time. And as far as tournaments, that Alliance tournament was special. That I kind of went into that as more of like a fun tournament. I knew that there's no money in it. And honestly, I never thought I'd ever actually win that one because it seems like it's so much about luck. You're against so many different people. And,
right.
I fished it for years on the Eagle River chain because, well, we can always catch fish out there. But in reality, you need to find a specialty bite. There's so many people on the Eagle River chain. So many fish are getting burned that the chances of you as a single person catching enough to win it, isn't that high.
Right.
So I happened to be fishing with my wife at the time, she was my fiance at the time. And so I couldn't take it super seriously. Like with her, I knew that I wanted to go somewhere where she'd have a chance at catching fish, that we'd be seeing fish, and keeping her interested and that she was having fun.
Sure.
And so I was more trying to cater to her. And we started off on a different lake on the first day and we didn't move anything in, a half a day. And I'm like, let's just go to we went from cloudy water to super clear water and like just change it up completely. And that was on a Friday and it was rainy and crappy. And so we went to this lake, which ended up working out on Saturday, but Friday she had all the action. So she was so excited. Like we were out there for 10 minutes and she had probably the big one that I ended up catching up, like a 45-incher on blades, just super slow rolling over sandgrass. And so she was just like absolutely stoked and so ready for Saturday. And then Saturday hit, complete weather change, and they wanted a different bait. There was nothing that I could give her that was big enough or she could rip fast enough to get these fish to actually eat, like they would follow. But
sure.
I had to rip as hard as I physically possibly could to get these fish to react. And that was, I guess I stumbled onto that and got lucky there, but worked out pretty sweet. But I don't know if you guys want to chime in anytime, but otherwise I'll ramble.
Go ramble. Yeah, please.
Like, so PMTT now, we've been doing the trail. Well, I've been fishing PMTTs for a while, but really got on the trail this is our third year doing it.
It's a lot of fun.
Lot of fun. And So like when I first got into it, like I suppose my vision has changed a little bit. Like obviously we want to win, we want to do well. We have become fully sponsored, so we don't really pay for much, maybe some lodging and gas or whatever, but our entry fees are paid for. We get extra cash for, some of the lodging and stuff. And so I'm always like a little bit under pressure. Like we gotta, make sure we try and produce and then keep the sponsors happy, let them know that we appreciate it and everything. But I initially started because I was like, I want to see, how well I can fish against, the best in the world or this country or whatever. I think I can do this. And I was always about like trying to get my name out there and try and do well and produce and be one of the best. And now it's become so much more about camaraderie and the friends that we've made, like irreplaceable friendships over the years, like friends from all over the country. These people you only get to see a few times a year. And it just has become so much fun just hanging out. Well, now with you guys traveling with us, it's been pretty awesome and looking forward to the future. But like, Jeremy and Trevor Barber,
Yeah.
Freaking great people. We surround ourselves with, the people that we like and good friendships. And it just turns into so much fun, whether we catch fish or not. So we obviously still want to, do well, but I'm going to do it as long as our sponsors can, foot the bill. Cause I don't think that I can really do it myself. Like, I don't think we could afford the entry fees, or would afford it, I guess. And, we're not going to make a living off of it because to me, it ends up being more so about luck. Madison PMTT, we're on fish, you guys know we were catching fish pre-fishing, same thing with Kate.
Yep.
And it just turned into a game of timing, which more times than not, it does. You got to be on the right spot at the right time. We were fishing where Lajewski was. When he caught his 3, we were there earlier and we weren't there when those fish lit up. So
Crazy.
We're all throwing rubber, that's just when it's your time, it's your time. I've come to find out I can't beat myself up too much. There's definitely disappointments, but just focus on the future. And, you try and learn something every time you're out there. And I definitely am always learning.
Yeah. Two things, I guess I'll just comment on the camaraderie aspect. I'm really new to doing the trail with you guys, and I was bummed I couldn't make it down to Cave, but I agree. Like the people are all awesome. And I think, if you are willing to drive like over 1,000 miles to musky fish for a few days or whatever, like you have a few screws loose. So to be able to hang out with some like-minded people, like it's just so easy to get along with everybody. And it's a lot of fun to talk fishing. And then second, about the timing thing, I couldn't agree more. I feel like a majority of the field has some sort of very dialed in game plan. No matter who you talk to, I feel like pre-fishing, everybody says that they're feeling great,
right?
In some capacity.
Well,
right?
You have to have confidence. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Right. And so I agree 100% about the timing thing. It's just, like you said, I know that bite on Monona, a lot of the people were doing the same thing. It's just, if your, bait's going to get in front of that fish at the right time and, and you can land it. I feel like that's half the battle too, right? Is actually getting them. Cause in a tournament, man, when you get a fish on, like, especially a big fish, the heart rate goes up on a normal day, but when you're in the tournament, it's just, it's a different animal.
You probably fight it a little different, and you're doing something different than what you would be if there's no pressure. A 35 incher will make you shake a little bit.
Right. Gus and I always talk about like not crossing the wires when we get a fish on, like trying to stay calm and collected, and it just never happens. Like if you watch any of our videos, we're completely, like essentially blacked out when a fish hits the net. We don't know what we're saying. We don't know what we're doing. It's just hilarious.
Yeah. What does Gus say? He's got musky block or something, blockage, because he never remembers anything that's happening.
Yeah, it's the musky blackout. It happens every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Gus will be like telling a story. He's like, yeah, you hit here, like it was on the second rip, and like you watch the video back and it like hit both sides, and you're just like, that's not even close to what happened.
Yeah. I can't count how many times I said, oh, I tossed it out there. That thing hit on the second rip. And I look back at the video and I popped the bait like 14 times before it hit. It's like halfway back to the boat.
I did that with my PMTT fish when I was telling the story at the end of the day. I was like, yeah, I threw out the crankbait and I was giving it some of these like big rips and then some twitches. And then we look back at the video and I'm literally just like reeling with like a slow, steady rip and then reeling with a slow, steady rip. I did nothing different or good. Like it just, again, fish was in the right place at the right
Timing.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you any other memorable tournaments from the last few years? I know that I don't know the full story behind this. I think I've seen the video too, but you caught a 50-incher, right? In Vilas County in a tournament.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? I got to hear about this.
Oh my God. So that's another note, not really much money involved. It's the Greater Wisconsin Musky tournament or something like that. And Rob Manthai and St. Germain Chamber or whatever put that on, which is a super awesome tournament. Can be tough because if you sign up on a lake, so there's a whole bunch of different lakes you can sign up for as long as there's openings. You hit that lake during turnover and it's going to absolutely suck. But so Nick asked me to fish that one. He's been doing it with his dad and, and cousins or something for years. It's like one of their traditional tournaments that they do. And he asked me if I wanted to fish it one year. I was like, sure, whatever. And so I was like, do you want to pre-fish it all? He's like, I don't know. It's just for fun. So we went out like one afternoon and, if you saw the video, we did like a goofy intro where he's talking about throwing a MEPS number 5 or something and probably going to get snagged a few times, and we're drinking beer and like just kind of giggling and stuff. Well, like we got on a pile of fish out there and it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like we might actually catch some fish in this thing. And so tournament morning comes around and we're out on the classic most community spot on the whole lake. It's a super long point that goes right out in the middle of the lake. And we're working up the one side and there's a boat in front of us and there's a couple boats on the other side of the point, maybe like 3. There's like 5 boats, like all within shouting distance. And so we're taking our time picking it apart and stuff. And like made it like maybe a half hour, 45 minutes into the tournament. And I'm watching these boats all like slide out, but nobody is like willing to hit the very tip of the point. They all like leave because there's another boat coming or something. Nobody probably wants to cut anybody off. So I'm like, man, nobody has like hit the very tip of this point yet. I'm like, well, we're going to fish it. So like, I kind of started to hurry up because there was another boat coming and I was like, well, I don't know what they're thinking they're going to do, but I'm definitely going to get the first cast on the tip of this point. So yeah, it was like literally chucked out Mag Dog and got a couple rips in and just got crushed. And I mean, obviously, when you get into a good fish, right away, that's a good fish. And I don't know what made me think in the video or like when I yelled, I think it's a 50 because I'd never caught one before, but it just seemed like it was a big one. It was probably going to be a 50.
That's awesome.
So, fought it. And I'm pretty sure we caught it off guard when we netted it because it came in clean and we got it in right away. Though it was pinned, I could have fought it for an hour. It wouldn't have gotten off. Had to cut the hooks out of it and stuff. But yeah, that was super memorable. That was my first 50. Ended up being enough to take first place. I dumped another mid-30s a little bit later, but honestly, like, I don't know if we were supposed to drink or not, but I had a bottle of Crown in my boat for like 10 years, and it was supposed to be for my first 50. So I pulled that out and we pounded that right away, and we're like, oh yeah, celebrating. And everyone that came around, because everyone's like, holy shit, we saw you fighting that, they wanted to see stuff. And they're like, you've got it wrapped up. You've got it wrapped up. I'm like, well, let's go to the bar. So there's a bar on the lake. So we drive over there and we go and we get bloodies, and we're like, hanging out. We have a beer and I'm like, dude, I kind of want to keep fishing. He's like, yeah, I mean, it'd be, the bite's on, maybe we'll get some more. And we walk out of the bar and we're just kind of, I wouldn't say we were drunk, but we staggering a little bit down, giggling down onto the dock. And like within a half a cast of the dock, here come a big fish porpoises. And we're like, well, we better get back at it.
Oh my God.
In a sense, we were worthless, but we still fished hard the rest of the tournament, and gave, as much as, made, had fun with it or whatever. But nobody was going to catch that one, I guess.
Was that a fall tournament?
It's in October. Yeah, it's right around the turnover. So depending on, sometimes lakes are done turning over, some are just starting. That lake started turning over on Sunday. So I think it was like a Saturday, half day Sunday, and Saturday was great, set up perfect. Sunday, I don't know what happened. It got cold and the wind switched or whatever, but it started turning as we were out there fishing and really clouded up and got kind of goofy, and we stopped moving fish. But
Wow. Yeah, I would have done the same thing. That's an unreal story. That's so awesome.
yeah,
So
never
I
forget it.
I'm kind of just I guess I'm kind of riffing right now. Gus, Brian, if you guys have questions too, throw them at him. But going from like one of the cooler, I guess, tournament stories, I got to hear because people love to hear about heartbreak. Have you ever had something in a tournament that you were like either on like the precipice of winning or something that could have pushed you over the edge, like a top 5 or whatever, and like something, I guess, either dumped a fish, whatever, just like I don't know, one of those stories, like, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you've already heard it or heard bits and pieces of it, but our Nick's and myself's first year of PMTT 2 years ago, we went to the championship in first place for team of the year. It was ours to win. We needed 130 insured. We were that far ahead of everyone to take Top Gun. It was on a Chippewa flowage where we're going back to. So it's gonna end up being a little revenge, hopefully this time around. But we pre-fished for 2 days. We did catch a fish both days pre-fishing, registerable fish, and we moved a couple others. But I think what we had kind of discovered was a spot that ended up being just a ton of fish on it. And had kind of just left it alone once we figured it out, and then just went around like looking for other stuff that was similar and just kind of struggled, but maybe picked up one here or there. And they were in places that we weren't even going to go back and fish, which is strange. And don't ask me why I didn't feel like there was going to be any more there, but they just weren't. They didn't look like that great spots, and we just got lucky and caught fish. So so that was a Friday, Saturday. If you caught a fish on Friday or Saturday, you could fish Sunday. Same as this year. Friday morning, we get out to this spot. We went right to it right away because we knew, we were first to take off, being, for the championship, it goes by your placement in Top Gun. So we were in first. So we took off first. So we're like, well, we got to go right to the money spot. And in the first 5 minutes, I had about a 40 come in on the figure 8, super hot. And I'm like, oh, it's going to eat. And I think I have video of this one on YouTube too, and set the hook perfect, just hit outside on the figure 8, and I drilled back into it and broke off. And, I thought I got bit off, but I probably had a bad spot in my line from my fish from pre-fishing. Nick had told me to check my line because the fish that I got gator rolled in the net. And I was like, yeah. And I don't know what I was doing, but I ended up like adjusting the boat. And then like we were talking about something and making other plans, and I never did check it. And I don't think I used that rod until, Friday. And so there went my favorite bait for the tournament and the fish right off the bat. And I looked at Nick and I said, this is going to be bad. Like I got a horrible feeling about the rest of the tournament. And we ended up dumping 6 total, including that one that bit off. And it was like there was absolutely nothing that we could do right, but we did everything right to get bites. But there was nothing that we could do to get these fish in. We would hook them out on the cast. I had a splashdown cast on Saturday. Fish crushes a deusa. I fought it all the way to the boat. It dove under the boat, went out behind the boat, swimming away, popped off somehow, like just came unglued out there.
Oh my God.
Halfway back to the boat, Nick would get crushed and fight it for like 3 seconds, seemed like an eternity, at that time, bait flies out. Others on the figure 8, set the hook, couple head shakes, fish gets off. I mean, it was just heartbreak after heartbreak. And
Jesus.
I think we ended up having more action than anybody else in the tournament. We just
my jaw's on the floor.
I don't know.
I couldn't even fathom that like at all. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, that is.
It stings. It still stings today because we got 4th place then for Top Gun for not catching a fish. So we didn't get anything for anything and went home a day early.
Oh,
That's
gonna be. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be hard to top for just worse beats because I mean that's 6 fish is unheard of.
Yeah.
It's pretty
That's-
unfortunate. The only good thing that did come out of it was we were staying with Blickerts. And we told them about the spot, where to go. And I was like, if you guys need another fish, because they're like, we have nothing else to go to. We don't know what we're gonna do, but keep going back to our same shit. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what, this is where we ended the day on Saturday. I had a follow come in hot, like a 40-incher on the figure eight, just didn't eat that time. That one just followed and never ate. He's right here. I would definitely check that out at Moon, which he did, went there, caught it, and they won the championship. So a little blessing in disguise for them. It was their time. It wasn't ours. And yeah,
well,
I don't know. I like to think maybe I helped out a good friend, and hopefully karma will come back around someday.
Yeah.
We're waiting on that yet.
Oh yeah, it will.
So the 50-incher must have been before that. Before
Yeah,
the
so the
tip-off?
50 was in 2020, and
Okay.
2 years ago would be 2021. Yep, the year
So
after.
you'll have another one soon then. A good karma's still brewing.
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be on the chip flowage too during the championship. I think
That'd be
that's
sweet.
well deserved at this point after hearing that story.
I would think so, but that chip can be a bugger sometimes. So I mean, I don't know what to think going over there, because you just never, if
Yeah.
that bites off, it could be just absolutely brutal. But
Yeah, no, we're really excited for that. That's going to be fun. We've only been out there once before, and I mean, we don't have to get into that whole trip, but we did us three did a trip out to Hayward and talk about shit going wrong. Just about everything that you could possibly imagine went wrong in about a 48-hour stretch.
Yeah.
It was just one of those trips from hell. We smoked a deer on the way up there at about
Total the car.
we totaled Brian's car on what highway is that? It was like
I don't know.
between
Siren and Hayward, I guess.
I'm talking like middle of nowhere in November with limited service, and it
4
was like
a.m.
28 degrees outside, and
Yeah.
with a totaled car on the side of the road, pitch black because it was new moon.
not good.
Not good.
No.
So we were going through all our options. Okay, I guess I'll just get into the story because we're just, I guess, swapping fish stories right now. But we go through all our options. We're like, do we bag the trip? Gus is already on the way to Hayward. He's coming from Eagle River. We were driving from Minneapolis. We called AAA, and like we must have woke this guy up like at his house, like 5 miles down the road. This guy
The
lived out in the
savior.
middle of nowhere.
Wow.
And we're like, can you tow Brian's car to like just a dealership in Hayward, and we'll just dump it in the parking lot? He was just like, yeah, sure. Sounds
just get out of my
like
truck.
we don't know if this is like legal or whatever, but like we were so excited to fish. We just like we just weren't thinking correctly. So but we dump Brian's totaled car in the like Ford dealership in Hayward at like 5:45, 6 in the morning. Gus picks us up. Well, it might have been later because the process took a little bit. But anyways, we dump the car at the dealership. Gus picks us up. We get out onto the lake, and like first drift, sucker rig goes under. I go to set the hook, set into like a really nice fish, fighting it, get it up to the boat side, and the hook bends out, and we dump the fish right at the boat. Like we were just about to die. And the drag locked. I couldn't free spool it. And it was fighting just like absolutely insane. It was same kind of thing, diving under the boat, barrel rolling, doing all this crazy stuff. And like, it was kind of had that feeling where like shit was already going wrong. And it was just one of those things where you just had that bad feeling like something else is going to go wrong. So we dump the fish. It's really windy. Our trolling motor then just completely takes a shit. And we're trying to figure out how to charge it. We had stayed at this cabin that was on the lake, like a resort kind of area a while back, and we became friends with the two owners. So we pull up there trying to use their like outlet. They're not around, so we're like rummaging through this resort that we don't know anyone there to like try to find an outlet and extension cord to like charge the motor. We kill like a majority of the day. I mean, it's November, so the sun sets at 4:45 at this point.
Yeah.
And so we get off the water. We like go to a bar. We pretty much just have a few too many. And we were only doing that day and then Sunday morning. And we're like you know what, after today, like, let's just go to an action lake. We were talking with a guy that runs this motel that we were staying at, and he's like, you guys should really go to this lake. This is all a long story to get to how we've got out of the Chippewa flowage for a few hours. So he's like, go to this lake. There's a bunch of fish in there. You know, there's some big ones. I've heard it's good in the fall, yada, yada, yada. This guy didn't know what he was talking about. First of all, we don't know what we're doing. Like, we're in Hayward, just like bumming around. We went there because it was a middle spot between Minneapolis and Eagle River for a quick trip. And so go ahead.
For, you know, respect to the motel guy, we had also done a little bit of research on the lake you recommended, and it seemed legit.
And he was also like really nice guy. Like, couldn't have been a nicer guy. So
he had high hopes.
He had a trustworthy, you know, persona about him. So we go to the lake that we're supposed to, that, you know, this action lake. There's no freaking water in it. Like, literally, there's no water.
It was drawn down like 8 feet. All the docks were like hanging up over. You couldn't get a boat in there at all.
Like, there was water in there, but like, we go to the, like, Gus starts to back down the boat, and I start walking. I'm like looking at it, and it's pretty early in the morning. I'm like, how is this gonna work? And I'm like, wait, it's not at all. This lake is completely drained.
The cliff.
Is it like the Manitou's chain where they drain it in the fall or whatever?
It might have been
down by a dam or something, so people don't have to take their docks out.
Interesting.
Yeah, I bet that's what it was, because there's a dam really close by to where we were launching.
Yeah.
So anyways, at this point, it's already like 9:30. Brian and I got to leave. Well, we also have to figure out how the hell we're going to get back to Minneapolis, right? Because we don't have a car.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And so, like, it was just a total cluster, you know what, from the get-go that day. So now at this point, we're like, the internal clock's ticking. We're like, we have maybe a few hours. So we're like, well, the chip's pretty close. We've never been on there. That should be easy to figure out.
Yeah.
So we just stumble onto this 40,000 acre body of water with no research, nothing. So who do we call? The hotel manager. Trying to get some spots. We call the front desk, like, hey buddy, we're out on the chip. You got any info for us? And then we pretty much drove around, casted a few baits, and spent the rest of the day on the phone with AAA trying to find a ride back. That never ended up happening, and we had to posh some carpooling and ended up making it back. But yeah, that's the only time we've been on the Chippewa flowage. So I'm hoping that
it looks awesome.
Better. Yeah, it
that's
looks
about all we took away from
beautiful.
It.
Yeah, everything looks awesome out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, I guess I did want to ask you, and we've kind of moved on from this, and then we'll wrap things up. So we've been going on for a while, but have you been fishing like the Vilas County, Oneida County area for quite some time? How long have you been up here for?
I was born and raised up here, and I started musky fishing with I have it on my wall. It's a split bamboo rod. It was my grandparents, and basically as soon as I was old enough to hold that, I would be fishing with my cousin, my uncle, my grandpa, and then one of my best friends right now from Sauk area and his dad. So there's like a group of us, and they'd come up a couple times a year, and I always get to hop in the boat with them, and I'd just cast until we couldn't do it anymore.
That's awesome. And you've been guiding now for a bit. I guess you want to kind of expand on that, and you know, when you started, what your program is right now, name, all that good stuff.
Sure. So I started, I guess, part-time a couple years ago. I've always kind of enjoyed taking new people out, and the more that I do it, the more I enjoy, you know, watching people catch fish, even more so maybe than I like catching them myself. And through some recent life events and stuff that happened, kind of changed my outlook on things and decided that maybe it was time to pursue my dream. And I guess it's kind of a family deal because my great grandpa was one of the first guides up here. I know you're familiar with off of Highway, and they owned one of the first ever resorts on that body of water, and he guided out there. And he actually guided some of Dillinger's group who like Whitey would be one of the main ones. I don't know if you're familiar with that whole story and everything. But that was one of their hideouts, was his resort there.
Oh my God.
They ended up actually buying the resort from my great grandpa, forced them out, said, "Hey, we're going to give you this much money. You can take this little plot of land over here and build your little shack if you want. But we really like this place. We like what you're doing. We're going to continue this relationship, but we are officially going to own this resort now."
Wow.
I think we'll have to have you on again, and I think we might have to do like a deep dive in the history of the Eagle River area.
Yeah, I'll tell some stories. I don't know if they'll all be true, but we can make some fun stuff up.
Yeah.
But that is truth. So now I'm trying to guide full time, and I formed my company name is called Thistle Dew Outdoor Adventures, and Thistle Dew was my grandparents' business name. My grandma had a sewing business, and my grandpa also guided. So that I kind of drew that from their business, and basically it's like this will do. I target muskies primarily. I can do bass and walleye and stuff, but I prefer not to. Yeah, just gonna try and take up as many people an adventure and show them a good time. Really, just want to focus on making sure that people are having a good time, and no matter how hard they want to fish or not hard they want to fish, even if that means just kind of giving them a tour of the area or something. If we're on like a chain, just going for a boat ride and just making sure that they're having a good time. But ultimately, we definitely want to catch fish, and I'll be on the water a lot now, and so I should be able to keep the pattern going, and have some fun with it. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been a blast. We'll definitely have to, do it again, maybe shoot the shit about some, like I said, Eagle River histories, some more gangster stories would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That would be awesome. So yeah, thanks for taking your time. Really looking forward to Vermilion, hanging a little bit, more of you up there. So that'll be a fun time.
It's going to be great. I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait too. That's going to be awesome. But Clayton, before you go, do you want to give out some of your socials or maybe contact info for somebody to get a hold of you?
Sure. So you can look me up on Facebook. I do have Thistle Dew Outdoor Adventures on Facebook. Clayton Spiess is my name, Facebook page. I have Instagram and my YouTube channel for fun, just to show people a little bit what's going on. My phone number is 715-891-1046. You can call or text anytime. My service is pretty limited, but I'll try and get back to you in a timely manner. And let's go on an adventure.
Hell yeah. All right, man.
Awesome.
Well, you have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
Coming
Appreciate
on,
it.
Clayton.
You bet. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Clayton. All right, guys. That was an awesome interview right there with Clayton. Really, really happy to have him on, have our second guest on the podcast. It was a good time talking with him. I hope everybody learned something, because I know I did. It's always interesting talking to Clayton. He's full of musky knowledge and loves to talk musky fishing. I think we're for sure going to get him back on the podcast, because he's doing the full PMTT with us, and he's going to be staying with us. So I think that'll be good, getting like another mind and things to just talk tournament fishing. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, and please be sure to, check out Clayton's guide business, Thistle Dew Outdoor Adventures, and, give him a follow.
Yeah, that was awesome. He's a really cool dude. I like his perspective on musky fishing a lot. That was an awesome conversation, and looking forward to having him back on, and good to hear some of those stories that he had. And it'll be interesting next time he comes back on to dive a little bit deeper into that rich history it sounds like his family had back in the day.
Those are some interesting things I would really like to know, because there's so much. There's a ton of history in this area. I mean, it goes way back. I mean, with the gangsters and all that, that's so cool. I mean, we don't know. I don't really know that much, but I know just bits and pieces, and that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, it wasn't all bad this weekend. Brian and I did sneak out with you Saturday night. We met up with you at a different body of water. a good bit of ways just to hang out on the boat and kind of decompress after our long day. And yeah, ended up getting a nice fish, and then your
Dumping
little
a nice
mishap we can
fish.
talk about. Yeah, dumping a nice
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah, so you guys went into the tournament and I met up with my buddy Parker and we decided to just kind of start at a lake that I mean he didn't know really anything about and I was only there two other times. Caught one fish and we just kind of wanted to try some new spots, learn some new things about the lake, see if we couldn't dial up a little trolling pattern going and just kind of just start marking out different spots for maybe in the future because it's got a really good reputation. I want to fish this like a ton more. Now I'm really determined to because it's been kicking my butt so far. And usually when lakes kick my butt, that makes me really want to just fish them more and more because I know that like any lake up here has got good musky fishing. It's just all about timing and learning the water and learning what they like to eat there. But that ends with just I think a side image fish and one follow on a trolling lure and live scope. And then the weather kind of turns a little juicy that midday. I know Max and Brian were talking about that wind shift happening on Saturday, that wind pickup. And we went to a lake that I also have only fished once, and that one time I was there raised a very large fish. And we pretty much got there right before I think that moon phase started, and we just went right to that fish, right to that waypoint pretty much, and just raise it again. No bite, it was still lazy. I think the same fish. It was hard to tell. It ended up maybe being a little smaller than I thought, but it was still a very nice fish, pushing that 44, 45. Definitely going to be after it this year. It just confused me that first time when I raised that fish that day, I raised it in the morning in bright sun, horrible conditions, and I went back at night on peak moonrise of full moon, and the fish was even lazier than the first time. And now I go back during an incredible weather shift, huge front coming in, this week after a long hot week, and the fish just does the same thing. So this fish is kind of confusing me. It's getting me all determined to go after it, and we just kind of end up having a little brutal afternoon there, and finally do a third lake change to the lake ultimately wanted to get to where Max and Brian met up with us, and it looked really good. I mean, this is when the conditions got like what you would call like the mega window, basically. And we moved fish, and I think by that time we were there for 20 minutes maybe, and then picked up Max and Brian, and we went back to definitely what I would say our A1 spot in this lake. And finally the pieces just came together. Everything made sense. My buddy Parker had a little giant killer on, just the absolute fish magnet bait in majority of the year, and just smoked a nice upper 30s, and the spirits are finally high.
You got to touch on though what the conversation was like right before he sets into that fish.
I mean, are you talking about the part where you came on the boat and ranted for like 10 minutes immediately, or right after that and you're just like, it would be cool if like, we caught a fish right now, and then he caught it?
No, he was talking about how he was struggling this year. And sorry, Parker, I'm just going to say it, but he's had a lot of close calls with muskies, but he hasn't been able to bag one yet this year. So he's literally talking about how he's like, yeah, man, it would be sweet if I caught a fish. Like literally, I think.
No, I think he pretty much was talking about that.
Yeah, because I said something about how I was like, yeah, Parker, you haven't gotten one yet. And I was like finishing the sentence and literally goes, got one.
Yeah. And then you're just like, oh, it better not be a pike. And
it shows where my mental state was at.
Yeah, bad mental state, just like immediately, going to that. And, Brian goes to the camera, I go to the net really quick, and yeah, put her in the bag, and that was a nice one.
For the first fish of the year, he looked like he had caught 50 muskies so far this year. That fish fought really hard. I mean, it dug him under the boat, took him kind of around, and he played it out nicely. It was good to see a fish hit the net.
Yeah, that was really good to see. Well fought, and we felt good. I mean, those conditions just stayed the same, and it just felt like it was only getting better. And I threw on my favorite 8-9 stagger because I mean I typically really do not throw bucktails that often unless unless I'm kind of in need of a bite if I use a small bucktail or I'm using a big one because I know the conditions are like extra juicy and this was the time. And I throw on that bait and I don't know how long I might have been using it for a little bit. I think that window to the next bite kind of took a little while to develop. It was weird. I mean, it felt really good. I think we had to go back to a couple spots. Went back to the spot where Parker caught the fish, drifted that same area, pretty much came very close to the waypoint of where he caught that fish. And I took a cast, bucktail hits the water, and I get rocked almost immediately. I mean, I know I probably had musky blackout, but I'm pretty sure that this was basically a reaction strike. Possibly could have eaten anything that landed in his face. And I laid into it, felt really good. Started to thrash on the surface. Came to the boat, so it was a long fight because it hit way on the cast and it just started absolute digging and barrel rolling. I think it did once, and it jumped in the air, multiple feet, no just thrashing the surface. I'm talking just like full airborne, twisting and turning, not like the tarpon jump, but I mean, this thing was screwing around with those hooks, and I could see that bucktail out. And then it just takes one mega dive under the boat. I mean, it was like close to the boat when it jumped, and it was just too sketchy. I think I called off the net, dove under the boat. We got it out of the way, preparing it for it to come back up. Usually they're digging, you got that good tension, and I just come up with a bucktail.
Just popped.
I think the fish just starts, it turned its head the wrong way, and those jumps really wiggled those hooks free, and I don't know. It was tough. It was about a 44, give or take an inch or two. Everybody got a good look at it, and that one stung because that ended up being, I think, the last bite of the night, and we just had to get back because you guys fished the tournament all day. We were out in the blistering sun as well all day, but I mean, it was just good to see fish really fired up. So at least I was really happy about that.
Yeah, and then you capped off the weekend with a 4-fish night in a 3-hour window. So not all bad. Things are hopefully shaping up. So if you want to touch on that a little bit, I suppose, and also maybe, I don't know, talk about where your head's at this week for league, what you think is going to happen, and take us into the 4th of July. I'm sure a lot of people will be up north this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a busy weekend coming up. We'll get out fishing. We're gonna bum around, maybe find some new spots on lakes or new lakes, but probably hit some of the mainstays. But yeah, after tonight, I finally got the spirits back up of, dumping that big fish Saturday night. I was determined. I went out solo, got the trolling rod out, and did a little trolling, stumbled on a pretty dynamite pattern that I hope I can recreate. And I mean, I don't know how much I'm gonna say here because it's pretty out of whack. I had to kind of get the thinking box out and just do something that I almost really don't even know how like my mind came to it, but ended up bagging 4 fish in a 3-hour window, and had to leave early, well before sunset, to get back to do this podcast so I could, go to bed at a reasonable time and get up. But yeah, it was a 42, a 40 and a quarter, 39 and a half, and a sub 30. So I will take that all day, every day. I'm just super happy that happened. That does not happen very often. And it was just cool. I mean, I was just smiling. I wish I had some more company, but it was cool to just stumble on a good pattern solo, because that can just be so tough when you're limited on, knowledge, lines, all that stuff. So
yeah, you just got to bottle that up, and hopefully that's still going on when I get back up there. I'll be curious to see if that pattern ends up being a fluky thing or if it's repeatable. So that'll be interesting. And yeah, I know you got a few guide trips coming up this week. It seems like your season's really picking up here last few weeks and into the month of July. So wish you the best of luck with those. But this one's a long one, so I think we can probably put a bow on it. Apologize to all the listeners for being a little bit of a bitch at the beginning of the podcast. Make sure to bring the energy next week. Hopefully we'll have a few more fish stories to tell and maybe get on a little bit better of a bite pattern. So anything more to add, Gus?
I mean, no, not really a whole lot. I mean, I think everyone's just super happy at it. Honestly, I'm really happy at another cold front, knock down those temperatures. I mean, typically when that water gets a little hot and you get that first cool down any time of year, really, it kind of sets fish off and you can kind of get on a good feeding window. And I'm hoping that carries on. That was good today. I think that should be good through some guide trips and leagues. And I just really hope it can all carry on because the weather truly does look, it does look pretty good. We're getting some good summer storms. It's looking like chances before the weekend. Weather's unpredictable up here, but yeah, I'm looking forward to get out fishing. And I hope everybody who's listening is able to get out fishing. And I'd love to hear some fish stories if you got them from our listeners. If you got some or cool catches that you want to share, that would be much appreciated. I know just this week, a listener sent in an awesome fish when he responded to a story of mine when I said, "Oh, the mega window is open," and he's like, "Yes, it did," and sent a big fish on topwater, and that was so cool to see. Gave some praise for the intros with the movie quotes, and sorry that you didn't get to hear one this week. We'll pick that back up next week. But just want to thank all the listeners for listening in on another podcast, and we'll see you on the next one. And before Brian takes us away on the outro here, I'll just quick give my socials for all the new listeners. And you can reach me on Facebook at Suggs Fishing Guide Service, or add me as a friend as Gus Manti. And you can find me on Instagram under Suggs Fishing. And you can also get a hold of me to book a trip either on any of those socials or my phone number, which is 920-264-3816. All right, Brian, I think that wraps up the podcast. You want to take it away? Give the folks a good night.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this week's pod. Very underwhelming for Max and I. Luckily for us and for hopefully everybody listening, we get to indulge in some cold brews over the 4th of July. Make sure you stay safe while you're doing it this weekend. And for those of you fishing, tight lines. Peace.